Hello and welcome to this tutorial on setting up your work area in SignLab. For those of you watching that are completely new to SignLab, this will be a general guide on the basic user interface and how you can set the various work area properties to better suit your style of work and personal preferences. If you are familiar with SignLab, then watch on anyway as you may be able to pick up some tips and tricks. I'll start with the taskbar at the top of the screen. This area as standard displays the properties of selected objects, the size, colour, position and so on. Whenever I make any changes to any of these parameters, the boxes here will be updated to reflect those changes. The taskbar will also change to display tools for individual features I select. For example, if I want to add some text, as soon as I select the text tool, the taskbar will change and display the editing tools for this feature. This is the same for many of the functions in SignLab. The taskbar will always remain in this position, unlike most of the other toolbars in SignLab which can be moved around, and we'll cover more on this shortly. The current unit of measurement is one choice that is displayed in the taskbar. If you prefer to change this to inches, it's simply a case of clicking on the rulers and selecting this option. The rulers are displayed by default, but can be deactivated by clicking hide. It's also possible to adjust the position of the rulers. There are a few different ways to rotate objects in SignLab, and one is to enter a value in the rotation field or simply click the up and down arrows next to them. You'll see as I am doing this the object is rotating in increments of 90 degrees. But did you know you could change this to one of 5 other values? To do this I must go to the Options menu and select SignLab Setup, General Preferences. Take a look at the Snap Angle dialog box. You can simply change this to any of the 6 presets. I'm going to choose 45 degrees and select OK. Now when I click on the rotation up and down arrows in the taskbar, my object will only rotate by 45 degrees rather than 90. OK, next let's take a look at the various toolbars on screen. If I go to the View menu and down to Toolbars, a flyout menu appears and this will list the 4 toolbars available. You can see in my menu they all have ticks indicating they are currently being displayed. Selecting any of these individually would disable them from view. Next time you're in SignLab, just take a quick look here and make sure all of yours are on display so you can get to know them. The 4 toolbars listed here are all movable and dockable. So for example, if I don't like the idea of my tools being down the left, I can pick them up and move them to the right. So I can now explain them individually. I'm just going to grab all 4 and move them to the center. Okay, the first toolbar is Operation, and this contains shortcuts for transformations, sizing, mirroring and just general object manipulation. For an example, I'll click the Slant shortcut, which will instantly bring up those tools to my taskbar at the top of the screen. Next, in the Workspace menu, I can change the way I view my objects, like turning off the object fill or enabling the view of other tools such as the grid or sign blank. System menu has my shortcuts for saving, exporting and the like, and probably the most important shortcuts within the whole program, undo and of course redo. And lastly, the Tools box, which contains all of the main features, text, shapes, welding and so on. A nice feature of this toolbar is that we can bring out and permanently display toolbars for the individual features within it. To explain, I'm just going to dock these back in place. There we go. OK, for example, if I use the parametric shapes tools a lot, I can take them and dock them in another location to make them just that bit easier to access. As long as I keep going back to this location to use a function, this toolbar will remain here. However, if I return to the original location like this, the set of tools will be redocked. It's all a matter of how you prefer working, and with SignLab giving you so many options, it's easy to set things up in a way that suits you. In addition to this, I will mention that if you leave a toolbar undocked on screen, SignLab will have returned this to its default location the next time you launch. With the exception of the Tools toolbar, all the others are customizable by going to the View menu, down to Toolbars, and selecting Customize. All I need do here is select the toolbar I wish to alter, and then click here to see a list of all the shortcuts available. Now it's simply a case of finding what options I would like and clicking Add, and vice versa. If a shortcut is already in there and you never use it, then just highlight it and click Remove. There are a few shortcuts I personally could not do without, and one of those is Remove All Guides. I'm going to add this here and explain more on this a little later. Another nice feature in this menu is the ability to create customized toolbars from scratch. This is handy if your workstation is used by 2 or 3 members of staff who all have their own preferences. Simply click the New button and then enter a name for the toolbar. Then add the shortcuts you like to use. Whenever you come to use Synlab, you can disable the view of your co-workers' toolbars and just display your own, and of course they may do the same. One other point to mention here is the Use Large Icons function, which is enabled and disabled by ticking this box. As you would expect, enabling this will display your toolbars larger on screen, but this will encroach on the size of your design area. But once again, this is a personal preference. So exiting from here, you'll see the changes I have made in effect, and this includes the brand new toolbar I created. The sign blank area in Synlab is designed to represent the substrate or general area of the sign or signs you intend to create. Its use is optional, and it's activated by going to the View menu and selecting Show Sign Blank. To modify the properties of the sign blank, I will need to go to the Layout menu and select Blank Size. The main parameters you will regularly change here are the dimensions of the sign blank and possibly the page orientation. You can also add a colour to the sign blank from this palette, but this will only show up if you have the Show Substrate option disabled in the View menu. Another way to add a colour layer to the sign blank is by clicking Sign Blank Object. This will create a shape that has the same dimensions and coordinates as the sign blank. The newly created shape will be placed at the bottom layer order so that it will appear under other workspace shapes. It can then be coloured to your choice by picking a colour from the main colour palette in the Synlab workspace. As well as custom dimensions, there are some useful preset sizes, and in the advanced menu it's even possible to create your own presets and add them to this list. One of the features here that is often overlooked is origin selection. Selecting one of the 9 boxes will define the 0,0 point of the blank, and this can be useful for aligning objects and general positioning. I'm going to set mine to bottom left and then exit here to explain more. I'll start by drawing a simple square on screen. Now let's say I want to align this to the bottom left hand corner of my sign blank. All I need do is enter 0 in both the X and Y axes and hit enter, and my shape will now be positioned exactly where I need it. The nice part of this feature is I can return to my blank size options and change the 0,0 points whenever necessary. So if I now change it to the center of my sign blank, return to Synlab and enter 0,0 for my XY coordinates, I'm sure you'd expect my object to be placed smack bang in the middle of the sign blank. Well, no, not exactly, and the simple reason is there is another parameter we have to change, and that is the current nub setting in the taskbar. Whenever an object is moved or sized, it is done so according to the current nub you have selected here. Each one of these 9 boxes relate to the standard nubs that are seen on screen when any object is selected. So to place the square to the center of the sign blank, I need only select the center nub here and then again enter 0,0 in my XY boxes. Using a combination of these 2 functions can be a real help when accurate location of your objects is required. As I mentioned, the current nub also dictates the point an object is sized from. Here I have 2 objects placed on top of each other, and I want to resize the top one but still retain their central alignment to one another. No problems as long as I have the center nub selected here. When I make my size adjustments, they will occur from the center out. Okay, I'm now going to go to the center nub of my objects, press and hold down the Shift key, and then right mouse click on the nub. This has created a horizontal and vertical guideline through the center of my object and the sign blank. It's now simple to add other objects and align them to the same center position. Guides are a great feature of SignLab, and to explain them fully requires a separate tutorial, but one feature I can now show you is the removal guide shortcut that I placed in my toolbars earlier. You see, to remove guides in the regular way means going to the options menu, going down to guides, and then selecting removal guides. But with the shortcut in my toolbars, it's one click. That's just one example of how setting up your choices and getting in the habit of using them can save you time. Okay, next I'm going to display the grid in SignLab by going to the View menu and selecting Show Grid. The size of the grid is changed in the General Preferences window, and this will generally be done on a job-by-job basis. It's an extremely useful tool when used with SignLab's node editing functions, and this is covered in full in a separate tutorial. As a simple example, I shall also activate Snap to Grid in the Options menu. Note the keyboard shortcut for this, as it can often be turned on inadvertently. With it on, I will now draw a series of squares. Notice how they all default to the preset size of the grid. This feature is incredibly useful for certain jobs, but can also be a hindrance when activated accidentally. Workspace Colors is located in the Options menu, and it will allow you to change the color of the background, grid, guidelines, and outer frame of the sign blank. Like all the settings we have covered, it's a matter of personal preference. Okay, that's it for this tutorial. I hope with your new knowledge of how versatile the SignLab user interface can be, you'll be able to customize your own in a way that you like. For a more detailed review of some of the features we have covered here, why not visit InfoSource, our dedicated online support and training facility, which is part of the cadlink.com website. Here you will find many more tutorials like this one aimed at helping you get the most from your software.